about to make so many people mad with my opinion on this movie. Screw it. I've never lied to you guys before, and I'm not lying to you now. What's up, guys? And we're going to be taking a little trip back in time to the childhood of this guy. Growing up, there were a couple movies that I would always watch as a kid. Batman 1989, Spider-Man 2002, Ricky Tikki Tavi, for those of you that even remember that, and this one, Scooby-Doo, the live-action remake from 2002. Now, I know that this movie has been ripped to absolute shreds by most critics, and I wouldn't even go so far as to say that people consider it one of the worst adaptations of any franchise ever, and one of the worst live-action remakes of all time. Even going so far as some people calling it worse than Dragon Ball Evolution. I will never understand those people. Now, this movie is not great, no. I can see its flaws very, very clearly. But, damn it, I love this movie. I loved it when I was a kid, and I still love it now. Yes, it's dated. Yes, it is a bad adaptation of the actual source material. Yes, I know of its many, many problems. Yes, I even know of that god-awful 2000 CGI. I know. And I know that this movie is overdone with fart jokes. I know. But there's just something about it that even as a 21-year-old man, I can't help but love this movie every time I watch it. And I think this is actually the first time I've watched it since I was a kid. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. This is the second time I've watched it since I was a kid, because the first time was earlier in the month when I watched it with Christy. You know how it is. You know what I mean. So, now that I actually have a full critic brain, I usually try not to let nostalgia cloud my judgment with certain movies. But there's those certain ones, like the ones I literally just listed, that nostalgia plays a huge part of it, because it is a lot of the things that I grew up with. I know Spider-Man 2002 is absolutely cheesy, but it is such a delight, and I don't care what anyone says, Tobey Maguire is still the best Spider-Man. Batman 1989, it's dated and it's old. No, it is a timeless classic that proved that even back then, if you actually try, you can make a great comic book movie. Even before the age of the Iron Mans and the MCUs and the Dark Knights and the Batmans. Heck, I even love all those horrible, cheesy freaking 2000 superhero films that people love to rip apart. You know the ones. Daredevil, Ghost Rider. Because I grew up with them. It is my generation. It is cheesy. Yes, I know it's not for everybody, and I know it's going to be a very controversial thing to say. But it's my childhood. It is something I hold very near and dear to my heart. Trust me, I can be cynical with some movies if you haven't already seen my other channel, where I've ripped some horrible garbage. But I can't be harsh on this movie. So buckle up, this is going to be a long video, because I'm going to be talking about every little thing that I liked about the movie, the things that I think critics get wrong about it, and the things that keep me from actually being able to call it great as much as I like it. So let's go ahead and get in. Let's start with the cast of our main Scooby-Doo gang themselves. First up, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Fred. This is abysmal casting of an unfathomably obnoxious degree. Because Frank Welker takes this character that's usually like, it's hard to explain. But Freddie Prinze Jr. has nothing on Frank Welker. Fred is Frank Welker's character. He's the one that gives that character personality, and his performance is what makes him so iconic. Freddie Prinze Jr., even though I know that he can be a good actor if he's given the right material, here it was just bad miscasting. It didn't really feel like Fred, it just felt like Freddie Prinze Jr. with blonde hair trying to be Fred, but instead just coming off as himself. And then we come to Linda Cardellini as Velma. She is okay. She's better than Kate Micucci, I can give her that. I'm sorry, Kate Micucci. I'm sure you are a gem of a person, but man, you are still a terrible Velma. Linda Cardellini is a decent Velma. She does a good job with the voice, she does a good job with the look, which is pretty much unchanged from her original incarnations. And she has the voice down, and the personality. She's passable, and I will give her a break. Then we come to Sarah Michelle Gellar as Daphne. Somehow, unlike Freddie Prinze Jr., this one doesn't feel like just a blatant paycheck role for her, and it feels like she did try to give Daphne more of a personality, because keep in mind, this is before stuff like Mystery Incorporated came out when it gave her more in-depth to her character. This was her talking about how she was sick and tired of being kidnapped, which is a nice little in-joke, because it actually happened so much in the original 60s show. So that's a nice little Easter egg. And she's instead like trained up trying to stand out on her own and show that she can hold her own against pretty much anybody. The only problem is it doesn't really come into much of an effect until the final act of the movie, when we get to the big final fight scene with the secondary antagonists. That fight scene's enjoyable, no doubt, and it is one of the funnier parts of the movie, but I just feel like they should have had a little fight before then, like maybe a guy's trying to hit on Daphne and she puts him in a headlock or something. I mean, come on. You could have at least had something like that. Oh yeah, and don't ask me about about Velma's relationship in this movie, because the guy she's dating honestly just doesn't even matter. He is stale as bread. He's not worth talking about. Let me just put it that way. He's just there to be there. But then we get to the biggest pro of this film. And that is without a single doubt Matthew Lillard as Shaggy. Even before he was cast in Mystery Incorporated, he proved that he did his homework. And he really, really tried to make this character as accurate to his original personality and persona as he possibly could. And there's a reason they casted him in Mystery Incorporated, because even here, he is a fantastic Shaggy. I bought him as the character. Yes, I could obviously tell it was Matthew Lillard under the makeup, but I didn't say like, oh, that's just Matthew Lillard, that's not Shaggy. No, that is Shaggy, and he had me laughing all throughout the movie. His dialogue, his jokes, his interactions with Scooby feel so genuine and so true to the character from the original series that it's almost mind-boggling. This is one of those perfect casting choices that sailed over everyone's heads back then. Seriously, Matthew Lillard was a great Shaggy here, and he's still a great Shaggy now. He's actually my personal favorite Shaggy, so I have this movie to thank for that. And then there's Scooby-Doo himself. who is cartoony the way he should be, and he does have great interactions with Shaggy, his best friend, again, as it should be, but I don't know, that CGI still throws me off, because, like Nostalgia Critic said in his review of this movie, Lord of the Rings The Two Towers came out the same year. Does kind of put things in perspective. Now, granted, this didn't have nearly as big of a budget as Lord of the Rings. Like, that is a big budget fantasy franchise. But my point is, good CG did exist back then. This is not a good example. But, in a way, a lot like the cheesy bad CGI from the first Spider-Man movie, it kind of works. And it adds to, like, this enjoyable cheese B-movie-like factor to it. But Scooby is definitely a bit on the Uncanny Valley side. But that's a minor complaint. Then we come to Rowan Atkinson as Mondvarious, also known as Mr. Bean. I feel so bad that I did not watch Mr. Bean until much later in life. Because this guy is funny. This guy is funny. This guy is a very charismatic actor. And, again, a lot like Freddie Prinze Jr., who just threw the freaking thing. Sorry, bad comparison. I mean, a lot like Frank Welker. He's what makes Fred. But with Rowan Atkinson, he takes what could have been just a random throwaway character and actually made him somewhat entertaining. Because he does have good jokes, he does have good dialogue here, and it would help since the writer is James Gunn, for those of you that didn't know. And it's just a really... It's surprising how much it actually works. I mean, yeah, you obviously do have some throwaway characters in here. Like Mary Jane, played by Esla Fisher. I know that this movie has a ton of weed jokes to try and appeal to the adults. And it's been a joke for a long time that Scooby and Shaggy smoke weed. But I'm not doing those jokes. It's tempting, especially with the fact that this character's name is Mary Jane, and if you know anything about weed or marijuana or anything like that, you will understand the joke right there. But outside of that joke, a lot like the guy they tried to hook up with Velma in this movie, she's a throwaway. Yes, there's one scene where she does get possessed by one of these evil monster demon things, and does end up giving Scooby to something I'm not going to talk about because it is a direct spoiler, and I don't want to spoil this movie any more than I probably already am. Okay, that's enough about that. Okay, what about the set design? The set design and the costumes really give this movie life, because the costumes, for the most part, are actually pretty faithful. Because Scooby still has those black spots, he still has his collar, Shaggy still has his brown slacks and the green shirt, Velma still has the turtleneck, the skirt, and the glasses, and that haircut. But Daphne and Fred's wardrobe did kind of throw me for a loop. I mean, it's not as jarring as you'd think, since they had already done wardrobe changes to these characters before and stuff, like Zombie Island, for example. But I feel like something was just missing here. Like Fred not having an ascot. That is a cardinal sin, and you know it. But Daphne being in a pink dress most of the movie, it's fine. I mean, matches her character, it's fine. But what makes this movie so good, the design of the place that they're in for most of the movie. Spooky Island itself. Yes, I know sometimes it is blatant CGI, but some of it is very practical built sets, and it is super impressive. That even back then they knew how vital and impressive practical effects can still be. In a movie loaded with CGI, that is a really nice thing to see. And I really just like the whole design of Spooky Island. All the different sections, the whole park itself. It just has this spooky vibe about it that really puts you in that Scooby-Doo mood. And it works really well here. At least in my opinion. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to talk about Neil Fanning as Scooby. He's fine. He's no Don Messick, and he's no Frank Welker, but he's fine. He fits the bill. He does a good job with the material that he is given. He's fine. Shaggy's still the best part of the movie, though. Let's be completely honest with ourselves here. Alright, what about the story? Well, the story is a bit scatterbrained. What do I mean by that? Let me explain. So, it starts like an actual Scooby-Doo movie you'd expect would start, by having them in the middle of a mystery. And a lot like Zombie Island, it's at the very end of a mystery. That works, that's fine. And the Lunar Ghost is actually a decent design. I don't mind that. The whole opening of the movie works well. Until we get to the part where all of them just mindlessly hate each other and walk out and quit. I never remember the Mystery Inc. gang being this nasty to each other. Now granted, Shaggy tries to keep them together, but they all have egos, and it's just like, I quit. I quit. Yeah, I quit. I'm sorry, that just feels so forced. Not to mention, it doesn't even last a full scene, because after we have the scene with Scooby and Shaggy in the Mystery Machine cooking burgers, again, if you know the joke they were trying to go for, then I don't need to say it, do I? And they get called in by this guy to Spooky Island, and it turns out that this guy, who turns out to be Mondavarius, of course, calls in the rest of the Scooby Gang. So, they were only apart for about maybe 10, 12 minutes, and then they're all back together again in the airport. What was the point of splitting them apart then if you're just going to bring them back together in the very next scene? And once again, even in that scene, they're still being nasty to each other. Like, even to poor Shaggy, and he is not even doing anything wrong. He's just happy to see his friends again, but now he has to deal with them constantly at each other's throats. I feel bad for him having to go through that situation. So they get to Spooky Island. Mondavarius tells him about this magic spell that's been corrupting all the teens and everything. And yes, I'm skipping past the airport scene because it's literally just jokes and introduces Mary Jane. That's pretty much it. Doesn't really have much of a bearing on the overall story. So they get to Spooky Island. Mondavarius tells them about this curse or spell or whatever. They start doing their investigations. And then they start getting deeper and deeper into the mystery. And then the monsters start kidnapping some of the gang, including Fred and Velma. Which is weird. I thought that Velma would actually be smart enough to dodge these things, but whatever. Movie is movie. And then they have these satanic powers of hell, because they have like the souls in a big bowl and a cave underneath the whole park. And then these monsters are like vampires. They can't survive in sunlight, yet they don't look like those at all. They look like goblins more than anything else. Yeah, trying to make sense of this story is an absolute mind screw. and I'm not gonna bother doing so. I will just say that the opening is fine up to the point where they needlessly split up. Then the second half is when it starts getting good. And one thing I do want to call out here, and I don't know if you guys caught this either, but the thing that they get when they go to one of the abandoned parts of the amusement park, Daphne gets this triangle. Now, originally I was going to make a Millennium Puzzle Yu-Gi-Oh joke, but looking further at it and all the markings and everything on my second rewatch, I see more similarities to the Lament configurations from Hellraiser. And the colors even reminded me of it, you know, black and gold with that shiny, with the gold being shiny with some kind of ancient text or lettering on it. Just a thought. And James Gunn has already proved that he is a fan of horror films, so I feel like he did that intentionally. Again, that might just be me catching it, but I don't know. I might be rambling, or I might be actually making a connection that no one's ever made yet. I don't know. Or maybe I'm just an idiot. There's that. There's that too. Then we get to the scene where most adults would cringe, but I laugh my head off every time I see it. That is the scene when Scooby and Shaggy decide to have a flatulence competition. It starts out as burps. Matthew Lillard gets very creative with with his physical comedy here. And then it moves on to farts. You know, kids' movie, expected. But the way that they execute it, and again, Matthew Lillard's amazing physical acting and his facial expressions, is what sells this scene so well. And then when Daphne walks in, I'm surprised she didn't pass out because of how hard Shaggy was going at it. It was delightfully cheesy, and it was so funny. I know, like I said, I know most adults that didn't grow up with this movie are like, oh, that's just the lowest brow humor you can think of, isn't it? No, here's the way I see it. There's a right way to use a fart joke, and there's a wrong way to use a fart joke. The right way is something like this, where you go so over the top with it that it becomes funny. And then you have pretty much all the others. Just saying. This is actually this is the way to do a fart joke. It works. In my opinion, it works. I do not give a damn if that angers some people, but it works. Now, granted, there does feel like a bit of a rush in the second act to get to the third act. That's a minor complaint, really. It's fine. It's not, like, eye-rollingly bad. What is eye-rollingly bad is the forced little break-up between Scooby and Shaggy just because of Mary Jane. Why? Why did that need to be in here? You could have easily just cut that scene out and missed a whole lot of nothing. But credit to Shaggy, he went after his buddy anyway. And the final act of this movie, it's so over the top, so cheesy, and just so full of itself that I feel like everyone involved knew that this was stupid. But it's the fun kind of stupid, where you just marvel at all the craziness going on screen. And I will not dare spoil the twist, because it is so meta that you just have to see it for yourself. It is a meta in-joke between both the Scooby-Doo fanbase and the actual creators. Just saying. So we get to the end of the mystery, and they all reunite, and then Fred kisses Daphne for some reason. Like, if this was the Mystery Incorporated era, it would make sense, but this was not. This was the live action. This was like the little live action side project during the start of the What's New era series. And I'm already been talking for over half an hour. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you have probably clicked on this video expecting for me to rip this movie a new one. I can't. I enjoy it far too much to be mean to it, like most critics. Yes, it is obviously not for everybody. Yes, I can understand why most adults call this one of the biggest piles of crap ever shat out of Hollywood. Yes, I can understand that this movie is a mess, if you look at it logically. But you're not supposed to. Because this is a movie that's made for kids. It is to teach them problem-solving skills, just like the whole series has done its entire life, through all its incarnations, through all the various movies and revitalizations, and through all those different TV shows we've had over the years. It was all about teaching kids problem solving while having funny slapstick and good jokes. This feels like a good homage to that. Like, this does feel like it was made somewhat in earnesty. But it does fall into a lot of the traps of these live-action remakes. There are some inaccuracies that you can rip apart, and there is a lot of moments that you are probably just gonna sit there and be like, but I don't know, something about it to me just works. I classify it like an old cheesy B movie, where it's a movie that you know is bad, but you do not care and just enjoy it anyway. This is what I like to call the Troll 2 of these live-action remakes, because many people really love this thing, especially people that grew up in my age, in my millennium, that grew up watching this as a kid. I've already talked for half an hour, so I should probably end the video here, huh? My final verdict for Scooby-Doo 2002 is a generous and actually quite strong 7 out of 10. 7. Because it does a lot of things right, but it still has problems and flaws that you can rip apart. And again, this is mainly based on nostalgia. If I had to go off like the impression of someone watching this for the very first time, not being a fan of Scooby-Doo, well, for one, if you aren't a fan of Scooby-Doo, you shouldn't be watching this, period, because it's not for you. But a Scooby-Doo fan, like an older Scooby-Doo fan that has never watched this movie, watching it for the first time, they would probably hate it. Because they don't have that nostalgia. They don't have that feeling that 2000s kids like me have growing up with this movie. If you didn't grow up with it, this is probably going to be more around a 5, maybe a 4. It's still not a bad film. But I will agree that I would have done a Scooby-Doo remake differently, in a few different ways. I would have recasted someone else for Fred. I would have given them their classic costumes, and I would have made them not be so spiteful of each other. That just seemed very pointless. Also, I wouldn't throw in the pointless love subplots. I would take those out. I would try to use more practical effects than CGI. Budgetary reasons be damned. But a lot of this movie's like actual template, I would keep in here. Because aside from Freddie Prinze Jr., none of the other castings really offended me. They didn't, like, make me feel stupid. They didn't make me feel like, oh man, this is just some guy playing this character from my childhood he has no right to just for the sake of a paycheck. It's not that bad. And those of you who think this is worse than Dragon Ball Evolution, you have screws loose in your skull. Because Dragon Ball Evolution is far worse than this. Far worse. That's why I'm not going to talk about it on this channel. If I do talk about it, it'll be on the other channel because I would not be able to hold back my F-bombs. But with this movie, I can. And I can definitely recommend this film. Just know what you're going into. You're going in for a cheesy B-movie. Pretty much it. Now join me in 2 days when we take a look at the sequel that I'm actually going to be a little less nice to. Maybe. I'll have to rewatch it again to really know for sure, but I still think this movie's pretty good. In my opinion. And that's all I got. Thank you guys for watching this half-hour-long review. And let me know your thoughts on this movie. And if you're one of the people that grew up with it and you understand why I'm being so nice to it. That's all I've got. Thank you guys for watching. And I will see you guys later today for my overdue review of Batman Vengeance for the Xbox. Sorry, some of the schedule things got switched around since we're coming to near the end of the month. I'm just going in full brake pedal mode. Full stomp on the gas with these projects as much as I can to get them all done in time for the month. Because then I don't have to worry about it later. In November, I can just take a little bit of a break. And then it's Sonic Frontiers time. Oh, we're so close. We're only 2 weeks away from Frontiers. I could not be more excited. But seriously, check this movie out. Don't listen to most of the critics. It is way better than you think. It's not amazing, no, but it is way better than most people give it credit for. That's all I got. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. I'm gonna go get a throat lozenge, kids. My throat's sore. See you later.